Hey guys, tonight we dive beak first into the mud-slicked lanes of a medieval village, where your bed smells faintly of damp straw and regret, and your only companions are 37 chickens and an entire lifetime ahead of you. You are a widow, not the lace and tea sort either. You are the kind of widow who once sharpened a paring knife on a doorstep because you ran out of whetstones. The kind of widow who, when your husband finally died peacefully, or perhaps with a bit too much surprise, found herself looking at the livestock and thinking, now what? Your cottage is slumped at the edge of the village like a drunk leaning on a fence. Inside, it is not much better. Wood smoke stains the rafters, and the thatch sometimes lets in more water than it keeps out. Your bed creaks like an old sermon, but every morning, without fail, the chickens cluck to life with the kind of optimism you have not felt since 1329. Outside, fog coils low to the ground, wrapping itself around your ankles like a clingy child. Chickens flap and fuss in the little yard, each one convinced it is the most important creature alive. You know them all by name, not their real names, mind you. You are no fool. You just call them what they call themselves. Old One, Peck, Big Sigh, Judith, Cluckington III, and so on. You are not rich, you are not powerful. You have no man to guard your gate or pay your taxes. And yet, somehow, you are a woman with 37 egg-laying enigmas and far too much free time. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is over there. I love knowing which time zones I am softly haunting. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge into the yard with a wicker basket that has seen better centuries. The hens rush you like feathered fanatics at a barley festival. Their clucks rise to a fever pitch, demanding tribute. You have learned to walk slowly and with purpose. Chickens can smell weakness. You check on your favorite, Judith, who has nested herself stubbornly in a cracked ale jug. She stares at you with the gravity of a papal envoy. You nod solemnly back. Judith is not to be disturbed. You begin your rounds. Fresh straw here, a handful of feed there. A few of the younger hens are beginning to lay, and your morning haul is promising. 13 eggs, warm and perfect, nestled in a cloth-lined basket. This is good. This is currency. Because in your tiny village, where the miller grumbles about wind and the priest preaches like he is auditioning for sainthood, eggs are better than coin. You can trade them for bread, herbs, wax, even secrets if you know who to ask and how to listen. And as a widow, you have learned that listening is your best defense. Now, about your late husband. Was he kind? Maybe. Was he clever? Not especially. Was he alive last spring? Technically. The truth is, he slipped in a pig trough during a late frost and never quite got back up. The villagers whispered about curses and old magic. You whispered back, mostly to the pigs, that he probably should have watched his step. Historians still argue whether widows in medieval villages held more freedom or simply more responsibility. Some were swallowed up by poverty, Others became midwives, apothecaries, even landowners. You have chickens and a strange talent for getting people to talk around you. You spend your afternoons tending the co-op, your evenings preparing humble meals, onion stew, bean porridge, sometimes a poached egg if no one is looking. The chickens keep you company, their soft murmurs like a strange lullaby. You talk to them, not in words, but in presence. A nod here, a gentle nudge there. It is not madness. It is survival. And then there's the gossip. Ah yes, fermented like bad mead, and just as potent. The butcher's wife swears she saw a fox spirit in the woods. The reeve's niece is hiding a pregnancy and blaming it on a wet wind. And you are the subject of murmured praise and cautious suspicion, because no one quite understands how you make ends meet, or how your hens lay more than expected, or how Judith seems to know when it is going to rain. One day, a boy throws a stone at your gate and runs. On it is carved a crude chicken and a question mark. You keep it. You have seen worse omens. Here is the truth. You have no plan. You have chickens, you have time, and you have an unspoken promise to yourself to never, ever rely on anyone else again. That is not bitterness. That is clarity. Quirky detail. Some widows in the 1300s reportedly kept ferrets as kitchen helpers to chase off mice. You tried one. It bit you and stole your best sock. Never again. Back in the co-op, you discover a surprise. An egg unlike the others. Slightly larger, speckled with a faint blue hue. Judith's doing, no doubt. You hold it like it contains a message. Maybe it does. Maybe it just means tomorrow will be interesting. The sun drops like a stone, and your shadow stretches long across the field. A chill creeps into your bones, but you smile anyway. You have eggs, you have chickens, and you have no idea what is coming next. But that is the fun part. The next morning, you are greeted not by dawn's gentle glow, but by shrieking. Not human, far worse. Chicken shrieking. You bolt upright, blanket twisted around your legs, half dreaming of Viking raids. But no, it is just Judith again, wailing like a banshee about some minor co-op drama. You stumble outside, hair wild, face set to grim resolve, and behold the carnage. A toppled feeding bucket, 3 hens perched on the roof like suspicious gargoyles, and your youngest pullet, nicknamed Fluffball the Timid, running in terrified circles around a patch of beetroot. The village is already awake, of course. You are aware of the eyes, behind shutters, above fences, always watching. Your life is public theater, only with more poultry and less applause. They call you that widow in the way one might say that thunderstorm or that strange smell near the tannery. You scoop up Fluffball, who immediately poops on your apron, and try to restore order. A grain trail here, a sharp whistle there. You learn chicken wrangling by necessity, not design. No one tells you that birds with brains the size of a lentil can still plot against you. The worst part? You are starting to suspect they gossip about you too. A scrawny lad from 3 houses down walks past your gate, holding his mother's water jug. He slows, then picks up speed when you meet his gaze. No greeting, just a glance like you are part of the landscape, thorny, unwanted, but permanent. That is the thing about being a widow in your time. You exist in a strange limbo. You are not under a husband's name anymore, but not quite trusted on your own. You have no son to speak for you, no father to manage your affairs. You are the odd variable in everyone's careful equations. And then, of course, there is your chicken habit. The church frowns at too many animals, especially ones that behave oddly, especially if they have names. Naming animals suggests affection, and affection, if unchecked, leads to sin, or worse, independence. One old priest even accused a widow of conversing carnally with goats. No one was quite sure what he meant, but she ended up in a duck pond anyway. Historians still argue whether women in your position were truly free or merely invisible. You lean toward the latter, but invisibility has advantages. No one sees you coming when you barter. No one asks where you heard things. No one notices how you quietly, methodically keep track of everyone's debts in a little book tucked inside the chicken feed barrel. And the chickens? Oh, they're loyal. Not emotionally. Let us not be ridiculous, but in habit. They come back. They follow the rhythm of your voice. They learn when you are angry and when you are about to sneak the millet. Some even perch on your windowsill, peering in like nosy ants. Today, the village reeve passes your gate. He is a rotund man who wears authority like an itchy robe. He pauses to frown at your co-op, makes a little gesture of the cross, then coughs loudly until you acknowledge him. You nod. He sniffs. You've got too many, he mutters. You say nothing. You know there's a tax on flocks. You still say nothing. He walks away muttering something about filthy women and their birds, which, if you are honest, would make a terrific tavern name. Inside your cottage, things are not much better. A hen named Marmalade has taken over your sleeping space, brooding stubbornly on a pile of turnip leaves. You try to move her. She pecks your wrist. You compromise and sleep curled like a question mark near the hearth. Lately, you have started talking back to them. Not full sentences yet, but little phrases. Really? And that was your idea? And well, you laid it. You sit on it. It is oddly soothing, like arguing with very small, very unreasonable politicians. And then comes the afternoon. You are tending the fence, mending the bit that big sigh keeps squeezing through, when a shadow falls across your work. You look up and see old Meb, bent like a half moon, eyes sharp enough to cut cloth. She peers at your co-op like she is reading runes. You got time, she says. Too much of it. You nod. She is not wrong. Want work? You blink. Meb is known for two things: willow baskets and cryptic insults. Her offer is unexpected. 3 coppers a week, she adds, plus broken eggs. Ah, there it is. She wants the duds, the cracked, the lopsided, the ones with double yolks that the priest says are demonic. You accept. It is money. It is something. She gives you a look that might be respect or constipation and toddles off, her walking stick tapping like a metronome behind her. Later that evening, after chores and squabbling, and one brief, ridiculous chicken chase through your neighbor's herb patch. You sit outside with a bowl of nettle soup. The stars are just beginning to show. Judith perches beside you, silent for once. You speak aloud, though no one hears. "What am I doing?" Judith blinks, then lays another egg. You chuckle. Maybe that is the answer. You are doing this today, and then tomorrow, one egg at a time. Quirky detail of the day. There is a medieval record of a chicken being tried in court for laying a cock's egg, which was assumed to be the result of a demonic pact. The hen was found guilty and, well, roasted. You finish your soup, nestle deeper into your wool shawl, and feel a quiet kind of triumph settle in your bones. You might not be respected, you might not be safe, but you are here. And for now, that is enough. You wake to rain. Not the soft, poetic kind, the sort that drills into your roof like impatient woodpeckers. You already know what this means. Wet straw, damp feathers, and hens with the emotional range of a moody troubadour. You pull your cloak tight and step out. Mud greets you immediately. Your boots squelch like someone chewing in your ear. The chickens have all decided to scream at the sky, as though the weather personally insulted them. It probably did. Today, you are counting eggs. But not just for breakfast. No. You are doing what no one else in this village seems to understand. Long-term planning. Strategic inventory. You have taken it upon yourself to discover exactly what 37 chickens can do when placed under the rule of one determined widow and given zero oversight. You head into the co-op with a basket and a small piece of charcoal. Your tally marks now decorate half the inside wall like some kind of rustic war map. It is not pretty, but it is accurate, and lately, patterns are emerging. Judith lays every second day, without fail. Cluckington III, despite his regal name, is a chaotic force and seems to lay only after dramatic thunderstorms. Big Sight, the broody one, guards her eggs like they contain the secrets of the universe. You record 29 eggs today. One cracked, one already pecked through, likely a mistake, or hunger, or both. But that still leaves 27 perfect specimens. That is 3 more than yesterday. Enough for trade, enough to matter. Because egg math is serious math. In medieval times, eggs were an everyday luxury, too fragile for long-distance trade, but vital for local barter. 1 dozen might buy you a loaf of decent bread, a wedge of cheese, or a pot of cheap ale. 2 dozen? You might get beeswax, smoked fish, or information. You do not just want to survive this year. You want to upgrade your survival. So you get serious. You sort by size. You note who laid where. You even start rotating nesting materials, suspecting certain textures produce better output. It is not science, exactly, but it is something close. Chicken psychology, perhaps. Historians still argue whether women in your position engaged in accidental science or simply superstition. You know what you're doing. Careful observation with a dash of gut instinct, like reading the stars, but with more clucking. Around midday, the reeve returns. He leans over your gate like it owes him money. Counting eggs again? He says. You nod. He snorts. Bit obsessive, isn't it? You blink slowly. You count coins. He frowns. That's different, is it? He stares. You stare back. Somewhere behind you, a hen lays an egg with a noise like a startled sneeze. He leaves. You return to your work, feeling mildly victorious. There is a moment, just before dusk, when the rain stops. You take the basket and slip through the back trail toward the baker's house. The air smells like wet moss and old secrets. The baker, Mari, is outside her oven, arms dusted with flour, face flushed from heat. 17. You say, lifting the basket slightly. Mari grins. 2 loaves and a bit of jam? You nod. And just like that, commerce is done. Mari pauses. You ever think about getting help? You shake your head. Chickens do not trust strangers. She laughs, but then her smile fades. Just be careful. The priest's been watching. Said something about unnatural routines. You sigh. Unnatural routines, like counting eggs, or not dying quietly, or running a house alone without male interference. Terrifying. You trade the eggs, slip the jam jar into your pouch, and start home. Along the way, you stop by the stream and rinse your hands. The water is icy. Your fingers go red, then numb. It is here you spot it, a tiny, perfect feather floating downstream. Pale gold, unfamiliar, not one of yours. You look around. The trees whisper nothing. You pocket the feather anyway. You never know. Quirky tidbit for the day. Some medieval folk believed hens laid more if they heard music. You briefly consider singing to them, but remember your voice once made a lute crack. Perhaps not. That night, back in the cottage, you pour some of the jam into a wooden dish and savor it with stale crusts. Luxury, sweetness, a reminder that things can surprise you. You check your tally again. If the current trend continues, you can spare another dozen next week, maybe enough for cloth or salt, maybe even something for yourself. As you extinguish the lantern, you glance over at the co-op. There is Judith, perched like a queen. Her eyes gleam faintly in the dark. You whisper, "Keep them in line, would you?" She blinks once. "It will do." You begin the day with a decision, perhaps your boldest yet. Expansion. It starts, as all great schemes do, with frustration. You go to open the co-op, and 5 of the hens spill out like gossip from a tavern. The door is too narrow. The perch is crooked, and Big Sigh is nesting on the feed scoop again. You've had enough, so you march inside, rummage through the heap of salvaged wood and fraying rope behind the hearth, and declare, mostly to Judith, that you are building a new enclosure. She gives you a look that says, "Do not drag me into this. There is an abandoned pigsty at the edge of your land, once the proud domain of a sow named Berta, now overgrown with weeds and haunted by a particularly dramatic toad. Perfect. You spend the morning clearing it out, pitchfork in hand, muttering like a disgruntled monk. There is something deeply satisfying about repurposing ruin into possibility. And as you dig, your mind wanders. What if this becomes a new co-op? What if you separate the younger hens? Give them space to grow. What if you even breed a few? The thought hangs there, outrageous, and irresistible. In medieval England, peasants could sometimes be fined for expanding animal holdings without permission. But you are a widow. Technically, no one's property. That loophole might be just wide enough to squeeze through, mud-streaked and grinning. Historians still argue whether widows were able to bend rules out of cunning or sheer neglect by the authorities. Probably both. You plan to test it. You fashion makeshift hinges from scrap leather, patch the gaps with bark and plaster, and hang dried lavender along the beams, because even chickens deserve a nice smell. And while you work, your mind sharpens around the shape of something new. This is not just busy work. It is intention, vision, maybe even a future. You try not to think about the priest, because here's the rub. He has started pausing his walks to stare. Yesterday, you caught him squinting at your co-op, muttering something to the reeve. Today, he passes again, and though he does not stop, he gives a little nod, like someone who has decided you are a problem on a list. Well, let him write your name down. Let him spell it wrong. You are not afraid. Mostly. That evening, you test the new enclosure. The younger hens, curious but cautious, enter it slowly, feet lifting with exaggerated care, like they are walking across suspicious porridge. You scatter a few oats to sweeten the deal. And just like that, it works. You have 2 flocks now, sort of. You sit back on your heels, breathing hard, muddy from elbow to ankle, and feel a thrill. It is messy, lopsided, and you had to chase marmalade out twice already, but it is yours. A chicken utopia, if you squint. Your neighbor, Ulrich, passes by with a bundle of firewood. He pauses. Building something? No, you say dryly. Destroying the concept of property. He grins despite himself and moves on. It is the first time anyone has smiled at you in weeks. Later, you jot notes in your ledger. You keep the records under the false floorboard beneath your table, next to a small pouch of dried rose hips and an old ribbon you cannot quite throw away. You sketch the new layout, note feed levels, and mark which hens seem restless. Restlessness is important. It means changes in laying cycles, in health, in pecking order. You've noticed something odd about Cluckington III. She paces lately. Less food, more staring. You'll keep watch. And then, as if summoned, she appears in the doorway, wet from the drizzle, feathers puffed up like a noblewoman in mourning. She stands there, regal and strange. I see you, you say softly, quirky detail of the day. Some folk in France once believed a black hen's egg, buried under a church altar during a new moon, would grant invisibility, which, you admit, sounds handy. You tuck the ledger away and stretch. Your back protests. Your hands ache. But your head? That is full of plans. Before sleep, you make one final round. The new enclosure holds. The toad has relocated. Judith is already dozing, head tucked under wing. You whisper to the co-op, "You better appreciate this." From the darkness, a soft cluck. You will take it. You wake to noise, not the usual rustle of wings, or the sleepy squabble of hens arguing over imaginary boundaries. No, this is sharper. A cry, a thud, something wooden snapping. You roll out of bed, grab your cloak, and sprint barefoot through the dew-heavy grass. Your new enclosure is under siege. To be precise, a fox has slipped through the far corner, where the beams meet the stones in a lazy embrace. It is gone now, of course, vanished like a ghost with fur, but the damage is clear. Feathers everywhere, one hen missing, another limping, the rest clumped together, wide-eyed and furious. Cluckington the third, of all birds, is leading the distress parade. You kneel beside her. "All right," you murmur. "I get it. I let you down." You spend the next 2 hours patching the breach, hands shaking more from adrenaline than effort. As the sun climbs, neighbors drift by, pretending not to look, but you can feel the judgment simmering behind their eyes. A single woman, animals, blood in the straw. You pull your cloak tighter. Keep working. Foxes are no joke. In medieval Europe, they were more than just pests. They were symbols of cunning, of evil, of the lurking thing that waits to undo you when your guard is down. Some even believed foxes were witches in disguise, or demons testing your resolve. Today, you believe in the fox, fully, angrily. If it wore shoes, you would track them down and throw one at its head. Historians still argue whether foxes were more feared as literal predators or spiritual threats. You are leaning toward both. By mid-morning, you have reinforced the wall with new stones, a row of thorn branches, and just for good measure, a charm you once saw your grandmother hang over a crib. It is a bit of string, a bit of bone, and something that looks suspiciously like a dried beetle. You do not question it. The hens settle, slowly, but something in the air has shifted. You can feel it. You bury the one that died, quietly, without ceremony, but with a small stone to mark her place. She did not have a name, but she had a presence. You hum a tune you barely remember from your childhood, just under your breath. After, you go inside and sit still, very still, hands folded, back straight, like you are being watched. Because you are. You know it. The priest walks past 3 times that day. Each time, slower. That evening, you light a candle and crack open your ledger. You record the loss. It stings. But you also record what worked. The hens' response, the breach location, the effectiveness of the thorns. This is how you learn, how you grow. Still, you wonder if it is enough. You sit in the doorway, sipping weak broth, watching the co-op in the dusk. The wind carries the smell of wet feathers, earth, and something metallic that could be blood or iron or both. You whisper to Judith, "Tomorrow, we double the patrols." She blinks, accepts this, and you remember a tale told by your aunt about a woman in Devon who trained her chickens to screech in specific tones depending on the predator. Owl, fox, snake. She called it her screech code. No one believed her until the manor's son was nearly bitten by an adder, and the chickens warned him in time. You consider trying it. Might be nonsense. Might not. You are past the point of caring what seems proper. You check your traps before sleep, simple noose, and pull contraptions your uncle once used on rats in the granary. They have not caught anything yet, but they are set, ready. In bed, the candle guttering, you let your eyes drift closed. You dream of feathers, of running feet, of a red shape darting through fog, and laughter echoing far away. When you wake, there is frost on the window. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders and whisper to the cold air, "You will not take another one." You mean it. You rise earlier than usual, before the light fully climbs over the distant woods, before the frost lets go of the grass, before even the chickens start muttering in their sleep. The sky is pale and cruel and smells like ice. Today is market day. You pack carefully 10 eggs wrapped in straw inside a wicker basket, a bundle of dried sage, and 3 small candles you made from leftover tallow. Not the finest goods at the market, but not the worst either. You have a strategy. You always do. You pause by the door, glance at your boots, then step back to the co-op for one last check. Judith meets your eyes like she's about to lecture you. "I will not be long," you whisper, trying not to incite a rebellion. She blinks twice. You take that as consent. The road to market is muddy and cold. Your basket swings from your elbow as you dodge puddles and greet no one. The market sits in the next village, larger, noisier, and a little suspicious of outsiders, even ones as nearby as you. But they like your eggs. That matters. Market days in medieval England are controlled chaos. Smells of fish and yeast and mud, voices calling out prices, the metallic clink of coins, and the sharper sound of gossip slicing through it all. Someone sells carved spoons. Someone else, suspicious tonics in green bottles. And somewhere, always, a boy playing a fiddle half in tune. You head for Mari the baker's stall first. She has promised a second jar of jam if your eggs are uncracked. They are. She hands over the jar with a wink and a quiet warning. "The priest asked about you again." You sigh. "Let me guess. Unnatural habits? Disturbing independence," she says, mimicking his voice. "As if you have summoned the devil with chicken feed." You snort. "Did not work last time. Maybe I should add garlic." Mari laughs, but her eyes linger a moment too long on your face. She knows. Everyone knows. You are stepping beyond, and that makes them nervous. You trade your candles to a woman selling dyed thread. You get a twist of green wool and a rumor in return. They say the Reeves' son has been found sneaking out to visit a weaver's daughter. The priest is furious. You file that away. Information is currency. Then you see her, a figure at the edge of the market, hood up, cloak heavy with dew. Not a priest, not a trader, someone watching. You shift your basket, move toward the stall with dried herbs, then double back. She is gone. Just market nerves, maybe, or not. You buy a pouch of dried mint and tuck it into your sleeve. Good for breath. Also, according to some texts, good for keeping evil spirits at bay. Can never be too careful. Historians still argue whether women like you, widows without a man to supervise them, were seen more as threats or simply nuisances. You suspect both, depending on how many eggs you sold that day. You pass a man selling quail eggs, daintier and pricier. He sneers at your humble basket. You raise your brow. At least mine are real, you say, and do not smell like mildew. A few villagers laugh. You win that round. As the sun creeps toward its peak, you slip into the church to warm your hands by the stone wall, pretending to pray, mostly hiding from the wind. The priest is there, of course. He eyes you. You look tired, he says. I have been productive, you reply. Perhaps too productive. You tilt your head. I was not aware. There was a limit. He does not smile. Your arrangements with animals. Your new building. Some are beginning to whisper. You nod slowly. Let them. Whispers mean they still have voices. He leans closer. Do not let pride walk you into fire. You hold his gaze. Sometimes the fire is warmer than the cold that earns silence. Then he turns and leaves. Outside, you draw your cloak tighter. You sell the last 3 eggs to a butcher's apprentice for a copper coin and a thick sausage wrapped in cloth. And just like that, market day is done. You trudge home under a sky the color of old wool. The wind cuts sharper now. The frost will return tonight, but your basket is lighter. Your hands are full. You reach your cottage just as the first stars blink through the clouds. The co-op is intact. No feathers scattered. No panic in the air. Just a steady, sleepy calm. You breathe out. Later, over a small fire, you roast the sausage with a crust of bread. It smells like victory and smoke. Judith settles into her perch with the smugness of someone who is not dragged through mud all morning. You whisper, "Next week, we raise prices." She clucks once, approvingly, and for a moment, everything feels steady. Quirky tidbit of the day. In some villages, it was believed that rubbing a chicken's egg over a child's head would prevent nightmares. You wonder what it might do for adults. You fall asleep quickly. A good kind of tired, but the image of the cloaked figure lingers just under the edge of your dreams. It starts with a feather, one, on your doorstep, perfectly white, unruffled, as if placed there with intention. You hold it between your fingers, heart oddly unsettled. It is not from one of your hens. You know their feathers the way you know your own hair. This one is cleaner, softer, and too long to have come from Judith or Big Sigh. You tuck it into your sleeve just in case it is a sign or a warning, or both. The morning is crisp, the kind of cold that makes your bones creak and your breath look like smoke. You check the traps first, nothing, but the bait is gone, neatly removed, as if plucked by fingers instead of teeth. Clever little thief. You curse the fox softly under your breath. As you refill the traps, you hear something new. Song. Faint, lilting, feminine. Not words, not melody. Just a sound that wraps around the trees and tickles the back of your neck. You freeze. Wait. Listen harder. Then nothing. Just wind. Always the wind. You shake it off. Return to the co-op. The hens are pecking at leftover roots. You scatter oats and note, with some satisfaction, that Judith has started sleeping closer to Cluckington, the third again. Maybe the squabble is over. Inside, you heat a stone in the fire and wrap it in cloth to ease the ache in your wrist. You have been doing too much. Or maybe you are simply not young anymore. But either way, your body whispers reminders that you are made of meat and limits. You sit by the hearth and open your ledger. Something nags you though. That feather. That song. You glance at your window. You never did like silence that arrives too quickly. In medieval superstition, white feathers could mean purity or death, depending on who found them and where. Some said a feather left at your door was a calling card from spirits. Others believed it was a message from the dead. You stare at the feather. Then, like a fool, you place it on your windowsill, as if daring it to become something more. That afternoon, you wander beyond your land, following a game trail through frost-laced brush and twisted hazel. You tell yourself it is for firewood or moss or curiosity. But in truth, you are chasing that song. You find footprints, human, small, narrow, old. You crouch beside them, press your fingers to the frozen earth. Not recent, but not ancient either, and definitely not yours. Historians still argue whether rural people in medieval England were as isolated as the records make them seem. Some think communities were tighter, more watchful. Others believe pockets of solitude, people like you, slipped through unnoticed. You are no longer sure which is true. By the time you return, twilight is bending the sky. Your fingers are numb, your boots soaked, but your head is full of that feather, that song, those footprints. You light your lantern early, hang it from the post outside, not because you expect anyone, but because it feels like a statement. You are here. You are not hiding. The hens have settled. Judith snores, which is more of a wheeze, but it comforts you somehow. You eat cold turnips and barley bread for supper, chewing slowly, as if it might help you think faster. And then you do something you have not done in years. You write a letter. To whom? No one, really. Yourself. Maybe to whatever left that feather. You use scraps of parchment and mix your own ink from soot and wine. Your handwriting is stiff, unused, but steady. You write, I am not afraid, but I am watching, and if this is a game, I have played harder ones. Come, but do not come quietly. You fold it, leave it on the windowsill beside the feather. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe everything will. Quirky tidbit of the day in parts of Wales. People used to leave offerings for house fairies, tiny loaves, sweetened milk, even eggs. Not for thanks, for insurance. In case the unseen grew cranky, you consider leaving an egg. Then you remember how rare they are this week. You snuff the lantern, lock the co-op, double-check the new stone wall. And when you sleep, the dreams return. A fox, the song, a door with no keyhole, and someone knocking from the inside. You do not wake screaming. You wake still and listening. You wake with the uneasy certainty that something has moved. Not in the house, no creaking floorboard, no shifted kettle, but something out there, in the world beyond the walls. A rearrangement, like someone nudged the chessboard while you slept and didn't bother to tell you the new rules. The feather is gone, not blown away, not fallen, gone. You check the sill, the ground, even your own hair. just in case the wind played some absurd joke. But no, it has vanished. And the note? Still there. But someone, or something, has left a mark, a circle, drawn in soot, on the folded parchment. No signature, no trace of a hand. Just that, a perfect, mocking circle. You tuck it into your apron. You are not angry. You are curious. And if you are being honest, a little thrilled. The air has that electric feeling it gets before a storm. Anything could happen now. And in a world where every day starts with chicken feed and ends with cold turnips, that is something. You step outside. Frost crunches underfoot. The sky is that off-white shade of winter denial, the kind that pretends it will not snow until it absolutely does. The hens are already fussing, scratching at the packed dirt, pecking each other in slow motion. Judith lifts her head like she knows you have a secret. You do not tell her. She would not approve. You busy yourself with the usual, cleaning out the co-op, sharpening your small knife, reinforcing the thatch over the storehouse roof. Your body moves through the motions, but your mind is elsewhere. That circle, that feather, that song. You dig out the old book. It lives under a loose floorboard beneath your bed, wrapped in cloth kept dry all these years. Her husband said it was worthless, a bunch of tangled nonsense and dead language, he had muttered once, not long before he died of a fever and the regret of marrying someone smarter than him. It is not nonsense, not entirely. The book is filled with notes, margins scribbled by your grandmother's hand, smudged ink, words in Latin, some not, sketches of plants, rituals, stars, and yes, circles, always circles. You flip through, slowly, then faster. You find it, the same mark, a circle for summoning, a circle for warning, a circle left not to open something, but to close it off, seal it in. You feel your pulse tick up. Historians still argue whether women kept grimoires, books of spells, lore, and healing, because they truly believed in magic, or because it was the only power left to them in a world built by and for men. Probably both. You carry the book to the fire and study it by flickering light. A circle appears on 4 pages, always near mentions of birds. Watch the wings. One line reads, another. Feathers fall when the veil grows thin. You look toward the window, just for a moment. Nothing. That night, the wind howls. You sit awake with a steaming mug of mead watered down so far it tastes like sadness, wrapped in a blanket, listening. The chickens stir once, but settle. You do not. You decide to try something. You take one of Judith's feathers. She will forgive you, and lay it on the hearth. Around it, you trace a smaller version of the soot circle from the note. Carefully, one breath at a time. You whisper, not a spell. Exactly. Just a thought shaped into sound. I see you. I know you see me. Show your shape. Nothing. Then the wind stops. Just stops. No fade. No shift. One moment, there is howl and scrape. The next, silence so complete it makes your ears ring. You stare at the feather. It begins to turn. Slowly, then lifts, hovers. You reach for it, and it drops. Hard. Like a stone, you blink. You are no stranger to strange things. A childhood spent among healers and half-believers taught you to keep your mind open and your mouth shut. But this is new and exhilarating. Quirky tidbit of the day. In early medieval bestiaries, birds were believed to be messengers of the divine, and sometimes of the damned. Some monks thought that if a bird flew through your house uninvited, it meant a soul had escaped purgatory. You check your roof just in case. Sleep comes late, and when it does, your dream is not a dream. You stand in your own co-op, but larger, endless, row upon row of hens, each with human eyes, each clucking in a language you understand only while asleep. They say, "Open the gate." You wake cold, sweating, blanket tangled, floorboards creaking beneath nothing. And outside, there is a second feather, black this time. You hold a black feather as if it might speak. It does not, but it hums, not audibly, no sound, just a pressure in your fingertips, like standing near a forge just before the bellows wheeze. Warm, alive. Judith watches you from the co-op, her usual sass dialed down into something approaching reverence, maybe even fear. You tuck the feather into a pouch beside the white one and fasten the clasp tight. Two now. One light, one dark. You feel like a character from one of those traveling puppet plays who accidentally becomes a prophet just by picking up a coin from the wrong well. There are no accidents anymore. The chickens behave oddly today, more organized. Judith, as usual, leads the social choreography, but now there is symmetry. Half peck to the left, half to the right. No fighting, no wandering, not a single misplaced egg. You catch one hen gazing at the sky for a full minute without blinking. That cannot be good. You decide to focus. Your little grimoire, your grandmother's patchwork of knowledge, has become the map. You draw the circle again, this time on the back of your chopping block. 3 feathers placed in a triangle. No incantation, just breath and waiting. This time, it shudders. A ripple across the wood like wind on water. Then a faint shadow in the air above it. Not a figure, just absence, like light refusing to gather. You speak. "What are you?" No answer, but the shadow sharpens, takes a form, a beak, a wing, 1,000 eyes where a head should be. You fall backward off your stool, blink, and it is gone. You blink again and laugh, not because it is funny, but because what else do you do when a bird made of shadow and confusion uses your chopping block as a runway? Historians still argue whether medieval villagers truly believed in omens or simply used them as metaphors for the unspeakable. But when you have seen a thing made of absence and feathers blink into your kitchen, metaphor no longer covers it. You clean the mess, slowly, deliberately. Wash the feathers in salt water. Chalk another circle under your bed, and then you find it. A 3rd feather, this one red, blood red, shorter, slick, stuck into the thatch above your bed like a pinned warning. At night, you light every candle you own and sleep with a knife under your pillow, not because you think it will help, but because it gives your hands something to do. The chickens mutter all night. You swear you hear your name in the clucking. In the morning, you set out. Not for market, not for wood. You head to the edge of the forest, where the ruined abbey slouches into moss and shadow. You have not been there in years. People say it is haunted. That is why you like it. The abbey is half swallowed by vines and memory. Statues of saints worn into eyeless sentinels. A bell still hangs in the tower, though no one dares ring it. You climb the broken stairs and enter the apse. There, carved into the stone floor, is the circle. Not a copy. The original. The one from the book. The one from your hearth. Not soot, but ash, burned into the rock. You drop to your knees. Place the 3 feathers, white, black, red, into the circle. Sit back and wait. Nothing. Then the air bends. It bends. Like heat rising. Like cloth stretching. Like reality flinching from itself. And something speaks. Not with words. With proximity. You see. Now do you understand? You whisper. No. It responds. Good truth begins there. The feathers lift into the air, spiral once, then burst into smoke, and you wake. You are not home. You are still in the abbey. Yes, but the sky is darker, the air heavier. There are no birds, no wind. You check your pouch. The feathers are back, untouched. You walk home in silence. On the way, you pass the old well by the crossroads. A boy stands there. You have never seen him before. He looks up. You are the chicken woman, he says. You pause. That is accurate. He points to the sky. They said you would stop it. You follow his finger. There is nothing there. Yet, you ask, who is they? He shrugs and runs. Quirky tidbit of the day. In certain Saxon villages, there was once a belief that hens could see ghosts and would stop laying eggs if one wandered too near. You get back just as the sun begins to vanish. You check the co-op. No eggs. All 27 hens are staring straight up. And Judith is not among them. Judith is gone. The co-op feels hollow without her sharp clucks, the way she strutted like she owned the whole place, which, frankly, she did. You feel the absence like a bruise. You run your fingers along the wooden beams, the rough stone walls, the cold earth beneath your boots, hoping to find a clue. But there is only silence, except for the rest of the flock, which remains unnervingly still, their eyes fixed on the sky, as if waiting for a signal you cannot hear. You recall the boy's words. They said you would stop it. Who are these they? The question settles into your mind like a stubborn stone. The wind shifts suddenly, bringing a faint scent of burnt wood and something else. Something wild and ancient like the forest exhaling after a long sleep. You clutch your pouch of feathers tighter. 3 feathers. White, black, and red. The colors have taken on new weight, like pieces in a game you never meant to play. You decide to leave the co-op and head toward the village. Maybe someone has seen Judith or knows what is happening. But the paths seem different. Shadows lengthen unnaturally, and even the trees seem to lean closer, whispering secrets you cannot understand. You reach the village square. Empty. A broken cart leans against a wall, rotting apples scattered across the dirt. No sign of life except for a stray dog that eyes you warily before slinking away. Your heart pounds. This is no ordinary disappearance. You remember a tale from your grandmother about the wraith fowl, spectral chickens that could steal souls and lead the unwary into the woods forever. You always thought it was a story to scare children, or perhaps to explain the inexplicable. Now you wonder if there is some truth buried in those old tales. You wander toward the edge of the forest, where the trees grow thick and the light dims. The air here is heavy, filled with the scent of moss and decay. You pause at the boundary, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, as if crossing an invisible line between worlds. You step in. The forest closes around you, muffling sounds, swallowing light. Your footsteps stir the fallen leaves, but you feel watched. The silence is broken by the occasional cluck, soft, distant, haunting. You follow the sounds deeper, your breath visible in the cold air. The trees grow twisted, their branches like gnarled fingers reaching for the sky. Suddenly, you come upon a clearing. In the center stands a great oak, ancient and towering, its roots twisting like serpents. Hanging from the branches are dozens of feathers, white, black, and red, fluttering in a breeze you cannot feel. You approach cautiously. Beneath the tree, a circle is etched into the earth, surrounded by stones arranged in a pattern you recognize from the book. You kneel and touch the soil. It is warm. A whisper drifts through the air, barely audible. The balance must be kept. The price paid. You stand quickly, heart racing. The forest seems to lean in, listening. You realize that Judith, and perhaps the other hens, are part of something much larger, a ritual or pact older than you. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly understood the natural world, or whether their beliefs created a parallel reality where magic and matter intertwined. Maybe it was both. You collect a handful of feathers from the ground and tuck them into your pouch. The air hums with unseen energy. You turn to leave, but a shadow flits between the trees. A figure steps into the light, a woman, cloaked in feathers, her eyes glinting like polished obsidian. She smiles, a slow, knowing curve of her lips. "You came," she says. You nod, words caught in your throat. She gestures to the circle. It is time to choose. Will you keep the balance? Or will the darkness swallow us all? You swallow hard, feeling the weight of the question pressing down like the cold earth beneath your knees. Quirky tidbit. Some medieval folk believed that widows had the power to commune with spirits because they lived between two worlds, past and present, life and death. You start to wonder if that is why this all began with you. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows. The forest holds its breath. You take a step forward. You step into the circle, feeling the rough stones press cold against your skin as you lower yourself onto the earth. The woman's eyes never leave yours, sharp, unyielding, like a hawk assessing its prey. Her cloak of feathers shifts with the slightest movement, each one shimmering faintly in the fading light. You realize this is no ordinary woman. She is part bird, part shadow, a living emblem of the mystery that has swallowed your life whole. You swallow the lump in your throat. What is this balance? You ask, your voice barely above a whisper. She smiles again, but it does not reach her eyes. The world is older than any book, older than kingdoms and kings. It is a dance between light and dark, life and death, order and chaos. Your husband's death, your lonely nights, even your chickens. They are all threads in this vast tapestry. You think of Judith, missing from the co-op, the black feather, the red one pinned above your bed, the shadow bird on your chopping block. And what happens if the balance is broken? The woman leans closer. Then the darkness grows. The unseen things creep in from the edges of your world. They take what is left unguarded. And time, well, it frays. You shiver, not from cold, but from the weight of her words. You've always believed in the practical, the grind of daily chores, the cycle of seasons. But now, faced with this otherworldly presence, you feel the thin veil between the ordinary and the extraordinary tier. You ask, why me? She gestures to the pouch at your side. Because you have 37 chickens and too much time. Because widows are like bridges between worlds, neither here nor there, holding the past and future together. Because you dared to notice the feathers. You want to laugh. It sounds absurd when you say it aloud, but the serious look in her eyes stops you. Historians still argue whether medieval widows truly wielded influence, or if their role was a narrative shaped by men fearful of women who refused to fade quietly. Whatever the truth, you are now the keeper of something ancient and alive. The woman stands, stretches her wings slightly, feathers rustling like dry leaves. You have one choice. Seal the breach or watch everything unravel. A breeze stirs the clearing. Feathers dance around you in a silent storm. You close your eyes, breathe deeply, and feel the pulse of the earth beneath you, the scent of damp soil, the distant caw of a crow, the faint metallic tang of blood on your tongue. You open your eyes. I will try, you say. The woman nods solemnly. Good, try is all any of us have. Before you can ask how, she steps back into the shadows, her form dissolving like smoke. The clearing empties. You are alone, except for the feathers, white, black, and red, swirling around you like a storm caught in slow motion. You gather them carefully and rise. The forest seems less menacing now, almost expectant. You make your way home as twilight deepens. The co-op is silent, empty, but you know the real journey is only beginning. Quirky tidbit. In some medieval communities, a widow's cloak was said to contain hidden charms sewn into its lining, tiny knots of wool or bits of bone meant to protect against spirits. You run your fingers along your own cloak and wonder if you have been wearing protection all along. You step inside, the air thick with the scent of smoke and feathers. Your life will never be the same. Back at the co-op, the first thing you notice is the stillness. The hens, except for Judith's absence, sit quietly, their feathers fluffed as if bracing for a chill that has nothing to do with the weather. You kneel and stroke a soft hen named Clove, feeling the subtle tremble beneath her downy coat. There is a tension here, awaiting. You set the 3 feathers on the wooden beam above the co-op, white, black, and red, like a silent pact. The sun has long since dipped behind the hills, and the world outside your cottage has taken on that peculiar medieval dusk that feels suspended, like the sky itself is holding its breath. You remember a strange superstition your grandmother once told you. If a widow's chickens stop laying, it means the veil between this world and the next is thinning. You never believed it until now. Your thoughts wander back to the mysterious woman cloaked in feathers, to the ancient circle in the forest, to the strange visions dancing behind your eyelids when you tried to sleep. The line between dream and waking blurs. You light a candle, its flickering flame casting long, jittery shadows across the stone walls. The smell of beeswax and melted tallow fills the air. In the flicker, you catch a movement. Judith, not the real Judith, but a shadowy silhouette perched silently on the windowsill. She looks at you with unblinking eyes, an echo of your missing hen. You reach out, but the shadow dissolves like smoke through your fingers. You sigh and sit by the fire, pulling your grandmother's old grimoire onto your lap. The worn pages smell of dust and secrets. There, tucked between chapters on herbal remedies and local saints, you find a curious entry on the widow's watch. It describes a ritual to guard against restless spirits that prey on the vulnerable. You decide to try it, gathering ash from the hearth, salt from the larder, and a sprig of rosemary. You create a small circle around your sleeping mat. You place a single white feather in the center. You whisper a prayer you barely remember, something about protection and peace. The candle flickers wildly and then steadies. You lie down, heart pounding, listening to the creaks and sighs of the house settling. Outside, a fox howls, a mournful sound that reminds you of loss and longing. You drift toward sleep, your mind a whirl of feathers and shadows. Historians still argue whether medieval widows wielded real spiritual power or were simply scapegoats for village misfortunes. Your experience suggests the answer is far from simple. A chill brushes your neck. You open your eyes. Judith is back, clucking softly in the co-op. Judith's return feels like a small victory, like a stubborn flame flickering back to life in the dark. You watch her move through the co-op, her confident strut restored, her sharp eyes scanning the shadows, as if she knows secrets no one else does. You realize you have been holding your breath. The other hens seem to sense it too, relaxing their tense postures, resuming their familiar pecking and scratching. You pour a handful of grain into the trough and watch as the flock greedily gathers. Life, you think, is stubborn, yet the question remains, what exactly did you confront in that clearing? What choice did you make? You sit at the kitchen table, fingers tracing the edges of your grandmother's grimoire. You wonder how much of her wisdom was practical knowledge and how much was something else, a touch of the mysterious, the magical, the unknowable. You recall an obscure medieval superstition about the widow's shadow, a belief that a widow's spirit could wander between worlds, acting as both guardian and warning. You never took it seriously until now. Your fingers tighten around the black feather in your pouch. It hums softly, a quiet thrum against your palm. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the shutters and making the candlelight dance wildly. You stand and move to the window, peering out into the night. The stars are out, pale, distant eyes watching silently. The village sleeps, unaware of the invisible threads weaving through its streets. A sudden rustle from the co-op draws your attention. Judith calls softly, a single cluck that sounds almost like a message. You step outside, the cool night air brushing your face, and follow the sound. The hens gather near the edge of the garden, clustered around something dark and motionless. You move closer. It is a crow, its feathers glossy and black as spilled ink, eyes glinting with uncanny intelligence. You remember the woman's words. The world is a dance between light and dark. The crow caws once, then takes flight, circling above the co-op before disappearing into the night. You feel the weight of unseen eyes on you. Historians still argue whether crows were considered omens or simply scavengers in medieval times. But in your heart, you know this is no ordinary bird. You return indoors, locking the door behind you. The feathers in your pouch vibrate softly, white, black, red, a silent reminder that the dance continues. You light another candle and sit, waiting for what comes next. Morning arrives slow and gray, the kind of light that presses softly through the narrow windows and spills across the wooden floor like a tentative promise. You wake with a start, the chill from the night still lingering on your skin, and the weight of the feathers heavy in your pouch. Somehow, the air feels thicker today, as if the world is holding a secret it is reluctant to share. You pull on your cloak and step outside. The co-op is quiet, save for the faint rustle of feathers and the low murmur of the hens settling into their morning routines. Judith packs near the trough, her movements deliberate, almost ritualistic. You catch sight of a faint trail of feathers leading away from the co-op and toward the edge of the forest. White, black, and red, like breadcrumbs marking a path through the undergrowth. Curiosity tugs at you, but so does caution. You know the woods are no place for the unwary, especially not when the veil between worlds is thin. You step onto the path, the soft earth yielding beneath your boots. The forest greets you with cool shadows and the scent of damp leaves and moss. You remember the stories of the widows' wards women said to walk between the living and the dead, guarding the boundary. You never believed those tales until now. Deeper into the trees, the feather trail twists and turns, leading you to a small clearing bathed in pale sunlight. In the center stands a simple wooden shrine, weathered and overgrown with ivy. On it rests a single white feather, pinned with a tiny silver brooch shaped like a raven. You kneel, heart pounding, and pick up the feather. A whisper drifts through the leaves, faint but insistent. Balance must be kept. You realize the feathers are more than tokens. They are markers of a sacred pact, a promise bound by blood and time. You hear a sudden rustle behind you and turn to see the feather-cloaked woman again, stepping silently from the shadows. Her eyes hold a strange kindness now, softened by something like understanding. "You have come far," she says, "but the choice is not yours alone." She gestures to the shrine. The villagers, some know, some fear. They wait for a sign. A leader, will you be that beacon? You hesitate, feeling the immense weight of responsibility settle on your shoulders. Quirky tidbit: medieval widows were sometimes suspected of witchcraft simply because they lived independently and held property. You wonder if your chickens ever whispered about you in the village market. The woman steps closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Remember, not all darkness is evil, and not all light brings salvation." You nod slowly, the words sinking in. The wind stirs the feathers pinned to your cloak, and you feel the stirring of something ancient, powerful, fragile, and waiting. Historians still argue whether medieval belief in spirits was an expression of faith or a way to explain the inexplicable. But standing here, you feel both faith and mystery entwined. The forest seems to hold its breath, watching you decide. You return from the forest clearing with the feather clenched tightly in your fist. The weight of it feels less like a burden and more like a challenge, a call to action that you cannot ignore. Back in your cottage, you prepare a simple meal, but your appetite is absent. The hens cluck quietly, sensing your unease. Judith watches you with sharp eyes, as if waiting for you to make the next move. You recall the local market days when villagers gathered to barter, gossip, and exchange news. Widows often kept to the sidelines, their voices muted by grief and suspicion. But lately, whispers have begun to spread. Rumors about the mysterious woman in feathers, the strange happenings near the forest, and the sudden disappearance of Judith. You wonder how much the villagers understand and how much they fear. That afternoon, a knock on your door jolts you from your thoughts. You open it cautiously to find a young man standing in the shadow of the frame, his face earnest and eyes bright, with a mix of curiosity and worry. "I heard about your chickens," he says quickly, "and the feathers. People are talking. They say you might know what's going on." You study him. His clothes are simple but clean, and there is a glint of hope in his gaze. "Why come to me?" you ask. He shrugs. "Because you're the widow. Because you have the time. Because you're not afraid." A small smile tugs at your lips despite the heaviness inside. He introduces himself as Thomas, a farmer's son who has long been fascinated by local legends and the old ways. He offers to help you keep watch over the co-op and explore the strange events together. You hesitate. Trust is a rare currency in times like these, but loneliness is a heavier burden. You agree. As the evening falls, the two of you sit by the fire, exchanging stories and plans. Thomas pulls out a worn notebook filled with sketches of birds, notes on herbs, and strange symbols you recognize from your grandmother's grimoire. You realize this is no ordinary alliance. It might be your best chance to unravel the mystery before it consumes everything. Historians still argue whether medieval villagers were superstitious fools or deeply knowledgeable natural philosophers. You suspect the truth lies somewhere in between. Outside, the hens settle for the night, and you feel a flicker of hope amid the uncertainty. Quirky tidbit. Medieval farmers sometimes believed that certain chickens could ward off evil spirits, especially if their feathers were arranged in a protective pattern. Something you think might be worth trying. You tuck the feathers safely into your pouch, ready for whatever comes next. The days begin to blur into a rhythm of quiet vigilance. You and Thomas take turns watching the co-op, noting every odd movement, every unfamiliar sound in the twilight. Judith grows more assertive, almost fearless, as if she senses the shifting balance herself. One evening, as you sit outside under a sky spattered with stars, Thomas shares a story from his grandfather about a chicken witch who once lived nearby. According to the tale, she could call the winds and see beyond the veil, but was feared and shunned. A widow like you who had too much time and too many chickens. You smile wryly, wondering if history repeats itself or simply whispers the same stories in new voices. The chickens become your unlikely allies, their patterns and behaviors strangely informative. You notice Judith often stares toward the forest edge at the same hour, her eyes fixed on something invisible. The others follow her lead, a silent chorus of feathers and clucks. One night, you find feathers, black, white, and red, pinned to the doorframe of your cottage, arranged in a precise pattern you recognize from your grandmother's book. Someone else is watching, perhaps guiding. You and Thomas decide to investigate further, venturing deeper into the woods, where the shadows grow long and the air hums with ancient energy. The feather trail leads you to a moss-covered stone altar, carved with cryptic symbols and surrounded by tangled vines. You brush away the leaves and uncover a small pouch filled with tiny bones and dried herbs, remnants of an old ritual. Thomas studies the symbols and murmurs. This is a place of power, maybe the key to restoring balance. You wonder what price must be paid to keep the unseen forces at bay. Historians still argue whether such rituals were pagan remnants or symbolic community acts. But standing here, you feel the weight of 1,000 whispered prayers. As you prepare to leave, a sudden chill runs down your spine. You hear a faint flutter, wings brushing the night air, and catch a glimpse of a dark shape vanishing into the trees. Quirky tidbit. Medieval folk often believed that chickens could sense approaching spirits, and that their restless behavior was a warning. You begin to see your flock in a new light, as guardians, messengers, and perhaps something more. You tighten your grip on the feathers in your pocket, knowing the dance continues, and so must you. The days grow shorter, and with each sunset, the air feels heavier, charged with unseen currents that prick at your skin. Your small alliance with Thomas deepens, bound by shared secrets and the flickering hope that together you can hold the darkness at bay. You find yourself increasingly drawn to the patterns in the chicken's behavior, how they gather, the way Judith crows at dawn with unusual clarity, and the strange stillness that descends just before the moon reaches its peak. It is as if the hens are the beating heart of some larger rhythm, one that you are only beginning to understand. One evening, while preparing a simple stew, you hear a tapping at the window. You freeze, the spoon hovering above the pot, and glance outside. A small blackbird perches on a sill, its beady eyes fixed on you. In its beak, it carries a folded scrap of parchment. You open the window cautiously. The bird drops the note into your hand and flutters away, vanishing into the gathering dusk. Unfolding the parchment, you see a single line written in a careful hand. Balance shifts. Watch the shadows. You glance back inside. Thomas is already studying the walls, eyes sharp with questions. You realize this message is meant for both of you. A warning, perhaps a challenge. The village feels different now. Whispers in the market, sidelong glances from neighbors, and a quiet tension that makes the nights seem darker and the days more fraught. You ponder the ancient dance of light and dark once more, recalling the feathered woman's parting words. Not all darkness is evil. Not all light brings salvation. It is the balance that matters. The chickens continue their watch, restless and alert, as if guarding secrets you are only beginning to glimpse. Historians still argue whether medieval folk messages were real or imagined omens, but you sense this is something deeply real, an invisible thread connecting you, Thomas, and the village itself. You tuck the note safely into your cloak and glance toward the co-op, where Judith watches you with sharp, knowing eyes. Quirky tidbit. In medieval times, blackbirds were sometimes seen as messengers from the other world, carrying warnings or blessings, depending on the teller. You smile, wondering what your new feathered courier thinks of all this. You blow out the candle, the flickering light swallowed by shadows, and prepare for whatever night brings. The following morning, you awaken to an eerie silence. The usual clucking and scratching of the hens is absent, replaced by a heavy stillness that presses against your ears. You throw on your cloak and rush outside, heart pounding. The co-op stands empty. Judith and the rest of the flock have vanished. A knot tightens in your stomach. Where could they have gone? You scan the yard and the nearby woods, searching for any sign, a feather, a footprint, a clue. Your fingers find the pouch with the 3 feathers inside, their colors vivid and unsettling. It feels as though the very air around you is thickened, charged with an expectant energy. You remember the warnings, the balance shifting, the unseen forces stirring. Suddenly, the legends your grandmother whispered seem less like stories and more like urgent truths. Thomas arrives, breathless and concerned. He brings news from the village. Several people reported seeing strange figures moving through the forest at dusk, cloaked in shadow and feathers. You share your own suspicions that the chickens are caught in some larger conflict, pawns in a game between worlds. Together, you prepare to venture deeper into the forest, determined to find Judith and unravel the mystery. You pack the grimoire, the feathers, and Thomas's notebook, feeling the weight of history and hope in your hands. The forest looms ahead, dark and tangled, but you step forward with resolve. Historians still argue whether medieval belief in animal familiars was superstition or early folk psychology, but you are beginning to believe it is something far stranger. Quirky tidbit. Medieval people often left offerings of grain and eggs at forest edges to appease spirits and protect their livestock. You decide it is worth a try, scattering grain in a small circle as you enter the woods. As the trees close around you, the path seems to shimmer, as if reality itself is bending. You tighten your grip on the feathers, ready to face whatever waits beyond. The forest swallows you whole, branches scraping your cloak as you push deeper into its shadowed heart. The air is thick with moss and mystery, and every crack of twig underfoot sounds like a whispered warning. You clutch the feathers tightly, their warmth a small comfort in the creeping chill. Thomas walks beside you, eyes scanning the gloom. The deeper you go, the more the world outside seems to fade, a distant memory replaced by something raw, wild, and ancient. You come upon a clearing, the moonlight pooling silver on the forest floor. At its center stands an ancient oak, its gnarled limbs stretched wide like welcoming arms, or perhaps a silent sentinel. Pinned to the bark is a crude drawing, a circle of feathers, just like those in your pouch. The colors, white, black, and red, form a pattern both beautiful and ominous. A sudden rustle from the underbrush makes you spin around. Judith bursts forth, flapping her wings wildly, followed by the rest of the flock. Relief floods through you, but it is short-lived. From the shadows steps the feathered woman, her eyes gleaming with both sorrow and strength. "You have done well," she says softly, "but the balance is fragile. Your time has come to decide." She reveals a worn wooden box, inside which rests a delicate, ancient amulet shaped like a feather. It pulses faintly, as if alive. "Take this," she instructs. "It will link you to the old power, but beware, for with power comes sacrifice." You hesitate, the weight of choice pressing down on you. The villagers, the chickens, the unseen forces, they all look to you now. Historians still argue whether such talismans were protective charms or symbols of real authority. But in your heart, you know this is more than superstition. You reach out, your fingers brushing the amulet's cool surface, and feel a surge, electric, terrifying, and exhilarating. The forest seems to hold its breath. The woman smiles faintly. "Remember, not all darkness is evil, and not all light brings salvation." You nod, the words anchoring you as you prepare to step fully into the unknown. Quirky tidbit. Some medieval widows believed amulets like these could communicate with their departed husbands, though few dared to try. The chickens settle around you, their feathers ruffling in the gentle night breeze, as if acknowledging the path ahead. You take a deep breath. The dance continues. The amulet rests heavy against your chest, a new pulse syncing with your own heartbeat as you step back from the ancient oak. The forest feels different now, alive in a way you had only glimpsed before, the air humming softly with an unseen energy that wraps around you like a cloak. Thomas watches you with wide eyes, understanding the gravity of this moment without words. Together, you begin the walk back, the path seeming less foreboding and more familiar, as if the forest itself acknowledges your new role. Back at the village, the air is thick with anticipation. Word has spread quietly, and neighbors watch with a mixture of hope and caution as you and Thomas move among them. your presence marked by a subtle but undeniable change. Judith and the flock settle comfortably in their co-op, their restless energy calmed, their feathers shining in the morning light. The villagers whisper stories of the widow who commands the chickens, who holds the balance between worlds, a role neither sought nor easily won. You feel the weight of their eyes, but also the warmth of their trust. This fragile piece is your legacy now, a delicate dance between light and dark, order and chaos. As twilight falls, you sit by the fire with Thomas, the amulet glowing softly against your skin. The chickens cluck contentedly nearby, guardians of secrets and symbols of resilience. You think back to the feathered woman's words and your grandmother's tales, feeling a quiet certainty settle within. Not all darkness is evil, and not all light brings salvation. The truth lies somewhere in between, in the spaces where stories live and breath. You close your eyes, the soft hum of the night wrapping around you like a lullaby. Quirky tidbit, medieval widows who embraced their independence often became the unseen pillars of their communities, weaving together stories, secrets, and strength. Historians still argue whether such women were empowered or marginalized, but in this moment, you know you are both. The dance continues, but now you lead. The fire crackles softly as the night deepens. The world outside fades to a gentle murmur, and you find yourself sinking into a calm unlike any before. The weight of the day, the mysteries uncovered, and the choices made settle into a quiet rhythm. Breathe in the stillness. Let the shadows fold gently around you, neither threatening nor distant, but familiar and safe. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again, bringing new challenges and new stories. But for now, rest. Let the whispers of feathers and wings lull you into dreams filled with ancient forests, watchful hens, and the steady heartbeat of balance. Good night.